The orbital research station Helix hung, like a gleaming jewel above the vibrant emerald and sapphire swirls of Exalis 7. From the panoramic viewing deck, Dr. Mara Quinn gazed down at the jungle planet's magnificent canopy. Her reflection overlaid against the transparistile, dark circles under hazel eyes. Auburn hair pulled back in a functional knot. She had been on station for 6 months, and the rotation was taking its toll. "Dr. Quinn to Xenopediatric Lab 4, the station AI announced, its voice oddly cheerful for the early hour. "Priority consult requested." Mara sighed, turning from the view. The recent wave of alien pediatric syndromes had left the entire medical wing operating at capacity. Native doctors from the jungle settlements below had transmitted case files by the dozens, baffling conditions that defied traditional medicine from both worlds. She strode through the gleaming corridor, the year 2245 emblazoned on a passing mission plaque. Mankind had spread to 17 star systems, established uneasy anthropological collaborations with 4 sentient species, and yet still couldn't figure out why alien children were falling ill across the southern continent of Exalis 7. "Update," she commanded as the lab doors whisked open. Lieutenant Jory Hara, her communications specialist, looked up from a holographic display. Her usually composed features were pinched with concern. "We've received an encrypted transmission from the Nayari field camp in Sector 12. Unusual protocol breach." "Show me," Mara said, pulling on a lab coat. The holo flickered, resolving into the image of a Nayari female. Her translucent blue-tinged skin pulsed with distress patterns, the bioluminescent markings flaring across her elongated skull. 4 delicate arms gestured in the ritual patterns of extreme urgency. "Human healer," the alien said, voice translated through the station's linguistics matrix. "I am Cerne of the Eastern Heights. My child, Talon, suffers the wasting sickness. Our healers have failed. The human doctors at the outpost say there is nothing they can do." The alien's voice cracked, and Mara felt an unexpected tightness in her chest. "I have seen your work. I know of your reputation. I offer you any pleasure you desire if you will save my child." Mara blinked, taken aback by the directness of the offer. The Nayari were notoriously private about their family units, and to make such a public plea, especially with the taboo offering of pleasure, indicated a level of desperation that transcended cultural norms. "Transmission origin?" Mara asked, already reaching for her diagnostic kit. Hara's fingers danced across the console. "Remote village, deep jungle, at least 14 hours by shuttle, and that's assuming optimal weather conditions." "What do we know about the patient?" "Child is approximately 7 standard years, male developmental phase. Symptoms include progressive neurological deterioration, bioluminescent pattern failure, and cellular dehydration despite adequate fluid intake." Mara frowned. The symptoms matched a dozen other cases they'd documented, all ending in death despite intervention. Yet something about the mother's plea had cut through her clinical detachment. After years of treating alien physiology, she had developed the necessary professional distance, or so she had believed. "Prepare the medical shuttle," she said, surprising herself. "I'm going down." Hera stared. "The orbital director hasn't authorized field excursions, especially with the storm system moving in. Safety protocols." "Override code Quinn Alpha 7, Mara interrupted. "Medical emergency exemption." "This is about what the mother offered, isn't it?" Hera asked. Her voice lowered. "Doctor, you know the Nayari don't think of pleasure the way we do. She could be offering you anything from a religious blessing to—" "This is about a dying child," Mara said firmly, though she couldn't entirely dismiss the strange pull she'd felt at Cerne's words. "Prepare the shuttle, and send word to the field camp. I'm coming." 3 hours later, Mara strapped herself into the pilot seat of the compact medical shuttle. The sleek craft was designed for atmospheric entry, loaded with advanced xenomedical equipment and supplies for a 3-day excursion. Procedure dictated a minimum team of 3 for field operations. But there hadn't been time to assemble a proper crew. Every hour meant cell degradation for the Nayari child. "Helix Control. This is Medical Shuttle Epsilon requesting departure clearance," she said into the comm. "Epsilon, this is Control. Be advised. Stormfront advancing from the northern quadrant. Recommend postponement until—" "Medical override," Mara cut in. "Patient condition critical." A pause. Then, "Understood. Epsilon. Departure authorized. Atmospheric entry vector transmitted. Good luck, Dr. Quinn." The shuttle hummed to life, disengaging from the station's docking clamps. Mara guided it smoothly away from the orbital facility, the blue-green world growing larger in her view screen. As the craft broke atmosphere, turbulence immediately rattled the frame. The storm system was worse than predicted, clouds boiling with electromagnetic discharges that played havoc with the navigation systems. Mara gripped the controls tighter, compensating manually as the shuttle bucked and shuddered. "Come on," she muttered. "Just a little further." The onboard AI chimed a warning. "Atmospheric instability exceeding safety parameters. Recommend return to orbital altitude." "Override!" Mara gritted out. "Continue descent." Lightning flashed, blindingly close, and the shuttle lurched violently. Warning indicators flared across the console as the propulsion system faltered. The craft began a steep, uncontrolled descent, breaking through the cloud layer into the driving rain below. "Mayday! Mayday!" Mara called into the comm. "Epsilon experiencing critical system failure. Attempting emergency landing at coordinates." The console exploded in a shower of sparks, cutting off her transmission. The jungle canopy rushed up to meet her, a sea of massive bioluminescent fronds gleaming eerily through the rain. Mara yanked back on the controls, fighting for any reduction in speed. The impact came with a sickening crunch of metal and a cacophony of tearing vegetation. The shuttle carved a destructive path through the upper canopy before slamming to a halt against the trunk of a massive tree. Emergency restraints deployed, cushioning Mara from the worst of the collision, but she still tasted blood where she'd bitten her lip. For several minutes, she sat motionless, assessing her condition. Nothing broken, though bruises were already forming across her torso where the restraints had caught her. The shuttle's integrity had held, but the navigation and communication systems were dead. Only the emergency beacon continued to pulse, a faint reassurance that Helix would know her position. Mara unstrapped herself and moved gingerly to the equipment locker. The medical supplies appeared intact, a small mercy. She assembled a pack with the essentials: diagnostic scanner, synthesizer, basic treatments for the most common Nayari ailments, emergency rations, and a compact survival kit. The shuttle's rear hatch groaned, but eventually yielded to the emergency release. Humid jungle air rushed in, carrying the rich scent of alien vegetation and the petrichor of rain-soaked soil. The storm had moved on, leaving a glistening, dripping forest bathed in the ethereal glow of bioluminescent flora. Mara activated her locator, checking the coordinates against her last navigation reading. The Nayari field camp was approximately 12 kilometers southeast. On foot, through unfamiliar jungle terrain, it would be a challenging journey. "No better time to start," she murmured, securing her pack and stepping out into the alien wilderness. The jungle of Exalis 7 was both beautiful and deadly. Massive trees rose hundreds of meters into the sky, their trunks spiraling in impossible geometric patterns. Fungi the size of ground vehicles pulsed with internal light, and vines thick as her arm writhed with subtle movement, tracking heat signatures of passing creatures. Mara kept her distance from the flora she recognized as predatory, grateful for the xenobiology training that was now the difference between life and death. Night fell quickly in the jungle, the darkness absolute save for the blue-green bioluminescence that outlined every leaf and frond. Mara activated her wrist light, creating a small sphere of human illumination in the alien glow. The sounds around her changed with the darkness, chittering calls from the canopy, the deep thrumming of what the colonists called drummer beetles, and occasionally, the unsettling scream of some distant predator. After 4 hours of careful progress, fatigue began to take its toll. Mara found a relatively secure position among the massive roots of a towering tree, her back protected by its trunk. She was preparing a small nutrient pack from her rations when the underbrush ahead rustled ominously. She froze, hand moving slowly to the pulse pistol at her hip. The vegetation parted, and a Nayari stepped into the small circle of her light. The alien was female, her translucent skin gleaming with intricate patterns of bioluminescence that pulsed with emotion. 4 arms held primitive but effective weaponry: a spear, a curved blade, and what appeared to be a small projectile launcher of native design. "You are the human healer," the Nayari said, her translator pendant converting the complex tonal language into standard English. "I am Cernay." Mara slowly relaxed her grip on the weapon. "How did you find me?" "Your falling star tore through the sky," Cernay replied, gesturing upward with one of her secondary arms. "I have been tracking you since. We must hurry. Talon weakens with each passing hour." "My shuttle crashed," Mara explained, gathering her supplies. "I've brought what I could salvage." Cernay's bioluminescent patterns shifted to something Mara interpreted as grim determination. "It will have to be enough. Follow me. I know paths that will speed our journey." They traveled through the night, Cernay moving with the fluid grace of one born to the jungle, occasionally doubling back to help Mara navigate particularly difficult terrain. The alien's desperation was evident in every movement, every flickering pattern across her skin. "Tell me about Talon's symptoms," Mara said as they paused at a small stream. "When did they begin?" 15 cycles ago, Cernay replied, the translator rendering her clicking speech. "First came the dimming of his light patterns, then weakness in the lower limbs. Now he cannot rise from his sleeping mat, and his mind drifts between clarity and confusion." Her patterns flared with parental distress. "He is my only child. His father was lost in the Great Storm 3 seasons past." Mara nodded, cataloging the progression. It matched the other cases, but hearing it described through a mother's perspective made it viscerally real in a way medical reports never could. "What did you mean in your message?" Mara asked carefully. "About offering pleasure?" Cernay's patterns shifted to what Mara recognized as confusion. "Among my people, pleasure is the greatest gift one can offer. It is not what humans think." She extended one hand, revealing a small, crystalline structure in her palm. "This is a memory crystal. It contains the collective joy of my ancestors, their discoveries, their moments of transcendence, their understanding of the universe's harmonies. To share this is to offer the deepest pleasure known to the Nayari." Mara felt a flush of embarrassment at her earlier assumptions. "It's an honor," she said sincerely. "But my only concern is helping Talon." Cernay's patterns rippled in what might have been relief. "Then we are understood." Dawn broke as they reached the outskirts of the Nayari settlement. Unlike human colonies with their uniform structures and grid patterns, the Nayari built their dwellings integrated with the living forest. Homes spiraled around massive tree trunks, constructed of a semi-transparent material that echoed the inhabitants' own physiology. Pathways of luminous stone connected the arboreal community. Their arrival caused immediate reaction. Other Nayari emerged from their dwellings, skin patterns flashing in what Mara recognized as alarm and suspicion. Several males approached, carrying ceremonial staffs that doubled as weapons. "You bring the alien to our sacred grounds?" one demanded, his patterns pulsing with authority. "Elder Rennock," Cernay addressed him, lowering her head in respect, but keeping her stance firm. "This is Dr. Mara Quinn of the Sky Station. She has come to heal Talon. The human doctors from the outpost have already failed, Rennek replied. Now you bring one directly into our home? The council forbade this. I forbid my child to die, Sernai countered, her patterns flaring with such intensity that the elder took a step back. Challenge me if you will, but do not stand between a mother and her child's salvation. Mara stepped forward, keeping her posture open and non-threatening as she'd been trained. Elder Rennek, I respect your concerns. I've studied the Nayari physiology extensively and have treated similar cases. I ask only for the chance to examine Talon. Rennek's patterns shifted through several emotional states before settling into reluctant acquiescence. The child's dwelling is yours to enter. But know this, human, if your medicine brings harm instead of healing, not even your sky people will save you. Sernay led Mara through the settlement, ignoring the flashing patterns of the other Nayari as they passed. They ascended a spiral pathway that wound around one of the largest trees Mara had ever seen, eventually reaching a dwelling near the middle canopy. Inside, the space was lit by soft, bioluminescent panels that pulsed in rhythm with the unseen heartbeat of the tree itself. On a sleeping platform formed from the living wood lay a small, Nayari child. Even to Mara's untrained eye, his condition was clearly critical. The natural luminescence of his skin had dimmed to barely visible patterns, and his breathing came in shallow, labored bursts. Mara knelt beside him, opening her medical kit. Talon, she said softly, activating her diagnostic scanner. My name is Dr. Mara. I'm going to help you feel better. The child's eyes, large, multifaceted orbs of deep indigo, flickered open. Your skin doesn't glow, he whispered, the translator pendant around his neck rendering his words in a child's high pitch. Despite the gravity of the situation, Mara smiled. No, it doesn't. But I've heard yours glows beautifully when you're well. It used to, he agreed, a flicker of brighter pattern momentarily illuminating his chest before fading again. Mara ran the scanner over his small form, frowning at the readings. The cellular degradation was advanced, his neurological system showing the characteristic disruption pattern she'd seen in the other cases. But there was something else, an anomaly in his biochemical signature that didn't match the previous patient's. Sernay, she said, not looking up from her scanner. Has Talon been exposed to any unusual plants or animals recently, before he became ill? Sernay's patterns flickered with thought. We visited the ancient temple 3 cycles before his symptoms began. It is a sacred journey all children make when they reach 7th season. The ancient temple? Mara asked. Her interest piqued. It lies 2 days' journey from here, deep in the forbidden jungle. Sernay explained. The temple walls bear the glyphs of our ancestors, including their healing wisdom. I had thought, perhaps if your medicine fails, the ancient knowledge might not. Mara studied the scanner readings again. The anomaly in Talon's system had similarities to compounds found in certain sacred plants the Nayari used in their ceremonies. If the temple contained information about traditional medicines, I need to synthesize a temporary stabilizing agent, Mara decided. It won't cure him, but it should slow the progression while we seek a more permanent solution. She opened her medical kit, extracting the compact synthesizer. The device was programmed with thousands of xenobiological compounds, capable of creating basic treatments tailored to alien physiologies. She input the parameters based on her scanner readings, and the machine hummed to life, combining molecules into a glowing blue solution. This will help with the neurological symptoms, she explained, as she filled an injector. It's not a cure, but it should bring him some relief and buy us time. Sernay watched with anxious patterns as Mara administered the injection to Talon's primary circulation point. Within minutes, the child's breathing eased, and a faint strengthening of his bioluminescent patterns appeared across his chest. The temple, Mara said, packing her equipment. "We need to go there." Cernay's patterns registered surprise. "The journey is dangerous, even for the Nayari, for a human." "I've come this far," Mara replied with determination. "The compound in his system, I think it's interacting with something he encountered at the temple. If I can identify it, I might be able to synthesize an antidote." A commotion outside interrupted them. Raised voices and flashing patterns signaled distress in the community below. Cernay moved to the dwelling entrance, her own patterns shifting to alert status. "Outsiders," she hissed, reaching for her weapons. "Human outsiders in the jungle below." Mara joined her at the entrance, peering down through the canopy. Even from this height, she could make out the distinctive uniforms of independent contractors, the euphemism used for the mercenary groups that operated in the outer colonies. Poachers, most likely, hunting the valuable biological compounds found only in Exalis 7's protected regions. 7 of them, Cernay counted, armed with disruption weapons. They speak with Elder Rennek. Mara strained to hear the conversation but caught only fragments carried up by the jungle breeze. "Temple location, generous compensation, exclusive rights." Renek's posture was defensive, his patterns registering clear rejection. The lead poacher, a tall, scarred man with cybernetic augmentations visible along his jawline, stepped closer, his stance threatening. "That's Crix Vorn," Mara whispered, recognizing the notorious poacher from security briefings. "He specializes in black market pharmaceuticals derived from protected species." "What does he want with our temple?" Cernay asked. "If the temple contains ancient medical knowledge," Mara reasoned, "it might lead to compounds worth fortunes on the interstellar market, especially if they're effective against conditions that modern medicine can't treat." Below, the confrontation was escalating. Vorn had drawn a weapon, pointing it casually at Renek's chest, while his team spread out, taking strategic positions around the settlement's base. "We need to leave," Cernay decided. "Now. They must not reach the temple before us." "But Talon," Mara began. "The stabilizer will hold for now," Cernay said, her patterns resolute. "I can carry him. We will take the hidden paths that only the Mother Guards know." Mara nodded, gathering her medical kit while Cernay gently wrapped Talon in a cocoon of bioluminescent fabric. The child stirred, but didn't wake, his breathing steadier than before. They slipped out through a rear exit, descending the massive tree via a network of concealed handholds, invisible to those who didn't know where to look. Cernay moved with remarkable agility, despite carrying Talon, and Mara followed as best she could, grateful for the endurance training required of all Helix personnel. They had just reached the jungle floor when shouts erupted from the settlement. Renek's voice rose above the others, followed by the distinctive whine of disruption weapons discharging. "They're forcing information from the elders," Cernay said grimly. "We must hurry." They plunged into the dense undergrowth, Cernay leading them along paths no human would recognize as passable. The jungle closed around them, swallowing them into its bioluminescent embrace as the sounds of conflict faded behind. For hours, they traveled in silence, pushing through terrain that grew increasingly difficult. The regular jungle gave way to what Cernay called the Forbidden Zones, regions where the plant life had evolved particularly aggressive defense mechanisms. Massive fly traps large enough to consume a human whole yawned open as they passed, triggering Mara's survival instincts. Vines with needle-like protrusions tracked their heat signatures, and fungi released clouds of spores that Cernay warned would cause paralysis if inhaled. By nightfall, they had covered remarkable distance. But Mara's human limitations were becoming apparent. Her muscles burned with fatigue, and the humid jungle air made each breath an effort. "We must rest," Cernay finally conceded, leading them to a small clearing, dominated by a rock formation. "This place is safer than most. The stone repels the night predators." They established a small camp, and Mara examined Talon again. The stabilizing agent was working, his patterns slightly stronger than before, but the underlying cellular degradation continued. "He's holding," she told Cernay, "but we need to find a permanent solution soon." Cernay nodded, her patterns solemn. "The temple is less than 1 day's journey now. We will reach it by tomorrow's dusk if we maintain our pace." "Can you tell me more about this temple?" Mara asked, accepting a nutrient pack that Cernay offered. "Why is it significant to your people?" Cernay's patterns shifted to what Mara had come to recognize as contemplative. "The ancient temple predates our recorded history. Our ancestors built it at the dawn of our civilization, when they first learned to manipulate the molecular structures of the jungle's gifts. The temple walls bear glyphs that contain this knowledge, formulas for medicines, the secret language of cellular communication, the rhythm of life itself." "And you believe this knowledge could save Talon?" "I believe," Cernay said carefully, "that whatever affected him is connected to the temple. It is where the sickness began, so perhaps it is also where healing can be found." Mara considered this. "In human medicine, we sometimes find that the poison and the antidote come from the same source. If Talon was exposed to something at the temple, the means to counteract it might indeed be found there as well." They fell into silence, the jungle's nocturnal symphony rising around them. Mara found herself studying Cernay, the graceful movements of her forearms, the complex emotions that played across her skin in luminescent patterns, the fierce determination that drove her to defy her elders and trust an alien with her child's life. "Why did you request me specifically?" Mara asked suddenly. "Your message said you knew of my work." Cernay's patterns flickered, with what might have been embarrassment. "I monitor the human medical transmissions. My people consider it inappropriate curiosity. But I have always been fascinated by your species' approach to healing. I followed your research on xenoneurological restoration. When the human doctors at the outpost failed, I remembered your name." Mara was surprised. Her work on alien neurological systems was highly specialized, published in journals most humans wouldn't bother reading. The idea that a Nayari mother had not only accessed this information, but understood it well enough to seek her out specifically was remarkable. "You're not just a mother," Mara guessed. "You're a healer yourself." Cernay's patterns confirmed it. "I was in training to become an elder healer before Talon's father died. I abandoned the path to care for my child." Her patterns dimmed slightly. "The elders saw it as rejection of my calling. It is partly why they resist my seeking outside help now." Mara nodded, understanding better the complex dynamics at play. "Then, we're both healers trying to save your son. That makes us allies in the truest sense." Cernay extended one of her hands, palm up, revealing again the small crystalline structure she had shown earlier. "Among my people, healers who work together, share their knowledge. Would you accept this gift now? It may help you understand what we seek at the temple." Mara hesitated only briefly before placing her palm against Cernay's. The crystal between their hands grew warm, then seemed to dissolve into a liquid light that seeped into Mara's skin. A cascade of sensations flooded her consciousness, not just knowledge, but experience. She felt the jungle as the Nayari felt it, perceived the subtle bioelectric fields generated by every living thing, understood instinctively the complex biochemistry of plants she had only studied in abstract. When the transfer faded, Mara gasped, her mind reeling from the influx of alien perspective. "That was incredible," she breathed. Cernay's patterns registered satisfaction. "Now you see with more than human eyes. It will serve us both at the temple." They slept in shifts, Mara taking the first watch, while Cernay rested beside Talon. The jungle around them pulsed with life, and Mara found that after the memory transfer, she perceived it differently. The bioluminescent patterns of the vegetation seemed to form a language she could almost understand. The very air charged with information her human senses had previously missed. She was roused from her contemplation by a distant sound, the distinctive crack of branches breaking under heavy, deliberate footsteps. "Surnay," she whispered urgently. "Wake up, we're not alone." The Nayari mother came instantly alert, her patterns shifting to combat readiness. She gathered Talon into her arms and gestured for Mara to follow, leading them deeper into the rock formation. A narrow crevice opened into a small cave, just large enough for the three of them. "Poachers," Surnay whispered. "They must have forced the temple's location from the elders." Mara nodded grimly. "They're moving fast. Too fast for us to outrun them with Talon." Surnay's patterns flickered with calculation. "There is another way to the temple, more dangerous, but it would put us ahead of them." "How dangerous?" "It passes through the heart of the Devourer's territory." Mara had heard stories of the Devourer, a massive predator that ruled the deepest parts of the jungle. Even the Nayari feared it. "Is there no other option?" Surnay's patterns were resolute. "Not if we wish to reach the temple first." The decision made itself. "Then we go through the Devourer's territory." They slipped out of their hiding place as the sounds of the poachers grew closer. Surnay, leading them on a route that took them perpendicular to their previous path. The terrain changed dramatically, the bioluminescent flora giving way to plants of deep crimson and purple, their structures more angular and predatory. The air grew thicker, filled with spores that drifted like malevolent snowflakes. "Do not breathe directly," Surnay warned, handing Mara a strip of fibrous material. "Filter the air through this." Mara wrapped the material around her lower face, noting its similarity to the activated carbon filters used in Helix's contamination protocols. The jungle around them had taken on an eerie quality. The usual sounds replaced by an oppressive silence, broken only by occasional low vibrations that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. "The Devourer senses through vibration," Surnay explained in barely a whisper. "Step where I step. Make no sudden movements." They proceeded with excruciating slowness, each footstep placed with deliberate care on the patches of spongy ground that Surnay indicated. Talon remained unconscious in his mother's arms, his condition neither improving nor worsening thanks to Mara's stabilizing agent. The center of the Devourer's territory was marked by a massive depression in the jungle floor, a perfectly circular pit nearly 50 meters across, its edges lined with the skeletal remains of creatures unlucky enough to venture too close. "We must circle around," Surnay whispered. "The far side connects to the temple approach." They had made it halfway around the pit when a thunderous crack split the silence. Behind them, vegetation parted violently as Crix Vorn and his poachers burst into the clearing. The lead poacher spotted them immediately, a predatory grin spreading across his scarred face. "Well now," he called, his voice carrying dangerously across the silent terrain. "If it isn't our helpful guide and a station doctor. Interesting company you keep. Alien." Mara felt the ground beneath her feet tremble slightly. Surnay's patterns flashed urgent warning. "Be silent," she hissed toward the poachers. "This is the Devourer's place." Vorn laughed. "Superstitious nonsense. There's nothing here but valuable compounds waiting to be harvested." He gestured to his team. "Secure the alien and her spawn. The doctor, too. She'll be useful for identifying the good stuff." The poachers began to advance, weapons raised. Mara and Surnay backed away slowly, mindful of each step. "The temple holds nothing for you," Mara tried, keeping her voice low. "Its value is cultural, not commercial." "Save it," Vorn snapped. "Our buyers have been monitoring Nayari communications. We know all about the miracle cures hidden in those old ruins. Worth a fortune to the right pharmaceutical conglomerate." The ground trembled again, more noticeably this time. Cracks appeared in the earth near the pit's edge, spreading outward like skeletal fingers. "Last warning," Surnay said, her patterns pulsing with genuine fear. "The Devourer comes." One of Vorn's team, a wiry woman with extensive facial tattoos, paused. Boss, maybe we should... The ground exploded upward as something massive erupted from the pit. Mara caught only glimpses of its anatomy, segmented body larger than a transport vehicle, countless limbs ending in crystalline claws, a maw ringed with organic grinding mechanisms that rotated in opposite directions. The devourer had been aptly named. Chaos erupted. The poachers opened fire, their disruption weapons having minimal effect on the creature's armored hide. It moved with shocking speed for its size, seizing one of the mercenaries in its claws and dragging him screaming toward its grinding maw. "Run!" Mara shouted, all pretense of stealth abandoned. Cernay needed no encouragement, sprinting ahead with Talon clutched protectively against her chest. Mara followed, her medical pack bouncing painfully against her back as they fled through the crimson foliage. Behind them, the sounds of combat gave way to screams. Then, an ominous silence broken only by the wet, grinding noises of the devourer's feeding. Mara forced herself not to look back, focusing instead on keeping pace with Cernay as they put distance between themselves and the carnage. They ran until their lungs burned, finally collapsing in a small clearing dominated by spiral-shaped fungi that pulsed with soft lavender light. Mara gasped for breath, her limbs trembling with exertion and residual fear. "Will it follow us?" she managed between breaths. Cernay's patterns indicated negative. The devourer never leaves its territory. It guards the temple approach as it has for countless generations. A natural security system, Mara realized, keeping the temple's secret safe. Cernay nodded, checking Talon's condition. The child stirred slightly, his patterns flickering weakly across his chest. "He senses we are near the sacred place," she said. "His spirit responds even as his body fails." Mara checked her scanner, frowning at the readings. "The cellular degradation is accelerating despite the stabilizer. We need to hurry." They resumed their journey, the terrain gradually changing again. The aggressive crimson flora gave way to plants of deep indigo and silver, their structures more geometric, almost artificially precise. The air carried a subtle vibration that Mara felt in her bones rather than heard, a low-frequency hum that seemed to emanate from somewhere ahead. "We are on the temple path now," Cernay confirmed. "Few Nayari walk this way in a lifetime. It is considered a journey of great significance." As they crested a rise in the jungle floor, the ancient temple came into view. Unlike the organic structures of the Nayari settlement, the temple was built of massive stone blocks, fitted together with impossible precision. Its architectural style reminded Mara of both Mayan pyramids and Angkor Wat, yet was distinctly alien in its proportions and details. The entire structure pulsed with subtle bioluminescence, patterns flowing across its surface like living circuitry. "It's incredible," Mara breathed. "How old is it?" "The oldest glyphs date from before our people developed written language," Cernay replied. "Perhaps 10,000 of your years." They approached the temple entrance, a massive doorway flanked by stone statues of Nayari ancestors. Their four arms held in ritual positions that Mara recognized as healing gestures. The doorway itself contained no physical door, but rather a shimmering field of energy that rippled like water. Cernay paused before the entrance, her patterns shifting to formal, ritual configurations. "We seek healing for a child of the heights," she intoned in the Nayari language, her translator momentarily silent. "Grant us passage into ancient wisdom." The energy field pulsed once, then parted like a curtain drawn aside. Cernay stepped through, Talon still cradled in her arms. Mara followed, feeling a momentary resistance as the field analyzed her alien biology before allowing her to pass. Inside, the temple opened into a vast chamber illuminated by pools of bioluminescent liquid that flowed in channels along the floor. The walls were covered in intricate glyphs, not carvings, Mara realized, but living organisms cultivated to grow in specific patterns. The entire temple was a massive biological computer, storing information in the DNA of its constituent parts. Sernai moved directly to a central altar, a raised platform surrounded by columns that pulsed with stronger light than the rest of the structure. She gently laid Talon on the altar's surface, which immediately responded to his presence by shifting its contours to cradle his small form perfectly. "This is the healing heart," Sernai explained, "the place where the ancestors stored their most precious medical knowledge." Mara approached, scanner in hand. The altar was generating subtle electromagnetic fields that interfaced directly with Talon's bioluminescent patterns, establishing a diagnostic connection far more sophisticated than her human technology. "It's reading his condition," she realized, "like an advanced biomedical scanner." Sernai nodded, her patterns anxious as she watched her son. "The temple will identify the imbalance, but the cure must still be synthesized by a healer's hand. That is our tradition. The temple provides knowledge, but healing requires conscious intention." The walls around them began to pulse more intensely, glyphs lighting up in sequences that Mara couldn't interpret, but which Sernai watched with growing understanding. "There," the Nayari mother said suddenly, pointing to a particular sequence. "The temple has identified the cause. During Talon's initiation ceremony, he was exposed to the sacred pollen of the ancestors' breath flower. Most children process it naturally, but Talon has an inherited variation in his cellular structure. The pollen has bonded to his neural pathways, causing progressive degradation." Mara studied the glowing patterns, her understanding enhanced by the memory crystal Sernai had shared. The cure would be a compound that can break that bond without damaging the neural tissue itself. "Yes," Sernai confirmed. "The temple shows the formula, a combination of 3 sacred plants, prepared in specific proportion and activated by bioluminescent energy." She moved to another section of the chamber, where basins of different shapes contained plant materials in various stages of processing. With practiced movements, she began selecting components, her 4 hands working in perfect coordination. Mara joined her, bringing her medical synthesizer. "If we combine your traditional preparation with my technology, we might be able to enhance the effectiveness." Together, they worked, Sernai identifying the sacred plants from the temple's living stores, while Mara analyzed their molecular structures and incorporated them into her synthesizer's parameters. The result was a glowing serum of deep indigo, pulsing with the same frequency as the temple itself. "It needs activation," Sernai said, indicating an alcove where a concentrated beam of bioluminescent energy focused into a single point. "Place the serum there." Mara carefully positioned the vial in the beam. The liquid inside began to swirl of its own accord, the color shifting through various shades of blue before settling into a brilliant azure that matched Talon's natural skin tone. "It's ready," Sernai breathed, her patterns flickering with hope for the first time since they'd met. They returned to the altar where Talon lay, his condition visibly deteriorating despite the stabilizing agent. Mara filled an injector with the azure serum, her medical training warring with a newfound respect for the ancient knowledge embedded in the living temple. "Together," she said, offering the injector to Sernai. "Your knowledge and mine, combined." Sernai placed 2 of her hands over Mara's, guiding the injector to the primary circulation point at the center of Talon's chest. Together, they administered the serum. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Talon's body arched slightly, his bioluminescent patterns flaring brightly before fading almost completely. Mara's scanner showed his vital signs plummeting. "No," Sernai whispered, patterns shifting to despair. "We've failed." Mara refused to accept it, adjusting her scanner. "Wait, look at the cellular level. The neural bonds are breaking down. The serum is working, but his system is overwhelmed by the sudden change." She reached for her medical kit, extracting a neural stabilizer designed for human use. "This isn't meant for Nayari physiology. but I can recalibrate it based on what I've learned from your memory crystal. It might help his system adapt to the changes." Working quickly, Mara adjusted the stabilizer's parameters and administered it as a secondary injection. Talon's vital signs continued to fluctuate wildly for several heart-stopping moments before gradually beginning to stabilize. "The patterns," Sernay said suddenly, pointing to her son's chest. "They're strengthening." Indeed, the natural bioluminescence of Talon's skin was slowly returning, spreading outward from his chest in the healthy patterns of a normal Nayari child. His breathing deepened, and his eyelids fluttered. "It's working," Mara confirmed, her scanner showing the cellular degradation reversing as the serum broke down the toxic bonds and the neural tissue began to regenerate. "He's going to recover." The moment of triumph was shattered by the sound of weapons fire from outside the temple. Mara and Sernay exchanged alarmed glances. "The poachers," Mara said. "Some of them survived the devourer." Sernay's patterns shifted to combat readiness. "They must not enter the temple. The knowledge here is too valuable to fall into such hands." Mara nodded, drawing her pulse pistol. "Stay with Talon. I'll try to hold them off." She moved toward the entrance, positioning herself behind one of the massive columns. Through the shimmering energy field, she could see 3 figures approaching, Crix Vorn and 2 of his team, all looking considerably worse for wear after their encounter with the devourer. "I know you're in there, Doctor," Vorn called. "Be reasonable. All we want is access to the temple's pharmaceutical secrets. Nobody needs to get hurt." "This place is sacred to the Nayari," Mara replied. "Its knowledge isn't meant for exploitation." Vorn laughed harshly. "Spare me the cultural sensitivity lecture. We've got buyers willing to pay millions for exclusive access to new xenopharmaceuticals. Step aside, or we'll be forced to demonstrate our persuasive techniques." The energy field at the entrance pulsed erratically as the poachers attempted to breach it. Mara realized they were using some kind of disruptor technology specifically designed to overcome alien security systems. "They're breaking through," she warned Sernay. "We need a plan." Sernay's patterns showed grim determination. "The temple has its own defenses, but they can only be activated by one with Elder Healer training." She looked down at Talon, who was now breathing steadily, his recovery progressing but still far from complete. "I cannot leave him." "Tell me what to do," Mara said. "After the memory crystal, maybe I can activate them." Sernay's patterns registered surprise, then thoughtful calculation. "Perhaps you would need to access the Guardian Circuit. There." She pointed to a recessed panel near the ceiling, illuminated by a distinctive pattern of glyphs. "Place your hands on the central node and focus on protection, on the sanctity of healing knowledge. The temple will read your intention." The energy field at the entrance flickered violently as Vorn's disruptor made progress against the ancient security system. Mara holstered her pistol and moved quickly to the wall, finding handholds in the intricate carvings to pull herself up toward the Guardian Circuit. The panel responded to her touch, glyphs illuminating beneath her fingers. Mara closed her eyes, focusing her thoughts as Sernay had instructed. She envisioned the temple's knowledge protected, used only for healing rather than profit. She thought of Talon, of the ancient wisdom that had saved his life where modern medicine had failed. She poured her intention into the connection, feeling the temple's living systems respond to her. A deep vibration ran through the entire structure, and the glyphs across all walls brightened simultaneously. The energy field at the entrance solidified into an impenetrable barrier, just as Vorn and his poachers attempted to step through. They were thrown backward with considerable force, landing in an ungraceful heap several meters from the entrance. "What the hell?" Vorn snarled, staggering to his feet. "Max power on the disruptor now!" Before his team could comply, a new disturbance emerged from the jungle behind them. Massive stone figures, identical to the statues that flanked the temple entrance, stepped forward. their formerly immobile forms now animate and purposeful. The temple guardians had awakened. Mara dropped back to the floor, returning to Cerne's side as they watched through the energy field. The stone guardians moved with surprising grace for their size, encircling the poachers with methodical precision. "That's impossible!" Vorn shouted, firing his weapon at the nearest guardian. The energy blast left only a slight scorch mark on the stone surface. "Fall back! Return to the ship!" The poachers turned to flee, but the guardians cut off their escape route. With synchronized movements, the stone figures herded the humans away from the temple, deeper into the jungle in the direction opposite the Nayari settlement. "They will not harm them," Cerne explained, her pattern showing something like amused satisfaction. "The guardians will simply ensure they become thoroughly lost in the most disorienting section of jungle before returning to their posts." Mara couldn't help but smile. "Efficient and non-lethal. Your ancestors were wise." She turned her attention back to Talon, who was now stirring more actively. His bioluminescent patterns almost restored to normal brightness. The child's eyes fluttered open, focusing first on his mother, then curiously on Mara. "You're the human who doesn't glow," he said weakly, his translator rendering his voice stronger than his condition would suggest. "That's right," Mara agreed, running her scanner over him one more time. "How do you feel?" "Hungry," he replied with childlike directness, causing both women to laugh with relief. Cerne embraced her son, her patterns radiating such joy that the entire chamber seemed to brighten in response. "The healing is complete," she said, looking up at Mara. "You have fulfilled your promise beyond all expectation." Mara smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond professional satisfaction. "We did it together. Your knowledge and mine, combined with the wisdom of your ancestors." They remained in the temple through the night, allowing Talon to regain his strength, while Mara documented the cure for future reference. The combination of ancient Nayari plant knowledge and modern synthetic techniques had created something neither tradition could have achieved alone, a perfect metaphor for the collaboration between the two healers themselves. In the morning, they prepared to depart. Cerne paused at the temple entrance, her patterns forming the ritual configuration of gratitude. The temple responded, the energy field rippling in acknowledgement. "What will you do now?" Mara asked, as they began the journey back toward the Nayari settlement. "Your elders may not welcome our return, especially after defying their prohibitions." Cerne's patterns showed resolution. "They will see Talon restored to health. That alone will speak to the value of collaboration between our peoples. And perhaps," her patterns shifted to something more hopeful, "perhaps I will resume my elder healer training. There is much our traditions could learn from your science, just as your medicine could benefit from our ancient knowledge." Talon, now strong enough to walk beside them, looked up at Mara with childlike curiosity. "Will you stay with us? You could learn to glow like we do." Mara smiled, touched by the offer. "I need to return to my station eventually, but I think there's important work to be done here, bridging our two approaches to healing." As they neared the settlement, they were met not with hostility, but with a delegation led by Elder Rennek himself. His patterns registered shock at seeing Talon not only alive, but fully recovered, walking beside his mother with restored vitality. "The temple's wisdom served us well," Cerne told him, her stance respectful but confident. "With the help of Dr. Mara Quinn, we have discovered a cure, not just for Talon, but potentially for all children affected by the sacred pollen." Renek's patterns cycled through several emotions, before settling into something like grudging respect. "The Council will hear of this. Perhaps our traditions regarding human collaboration require reconsideration." In the days that followed, a retrieval shuttle from Helix Station arrived, guided to Mara's location by her emergency beacon. Lieutenant Hara herself led the rescue team, her professional demeanor briefly cracking at the sight of Mara alive and well among the Nayari. "You have no idea how worried we've been," Hera said, embracing her colleague. "When your shuttle went down and communications failed." "I had excellent help," Mara replied, glancing at Cerné, who stood nearby, Talon at her side. The return to Helix Station brought significant changes. Based on Mara's documentation of the Temple cure, new protocols were established for xenopediatric medicine, incorporating traditional Nayari healing knowledge with human medical technology. Elder Rennick, impressed by the results, agreed to a formal collaborative research program, the first of its kind between the station and the jungle settlements. As for Mara and Cerné, their shared experience had forged a bond that transcended professional collaboration. With station approval, they established a joint research outpost at the edge of the Nayari territory, a place where healers from both species could exchange knowledge and techniques for the benefit of all. 2 months after the temple journey, Mara stood on the observation platform of the new outpost, watching Talon play with other Nayari children beneath the massive trees. His bioluminescent patterns pulsed with vibrant health as he explained something to his friends, occasionally pointing up toward the platform where Mara stood. Cerné joined her, the Nayari's patterns reflecting contentment. "He tells everyone how the human who doesn't glow saved his life," she said, amusement in her translated voice. "You've become something of a legend among our children." Mara smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment that went beyond any professional achievement. "And you've become something of a revolutionary among your healers. I heard your proposal for a permanent exchange program was approved by both the elders and the station board. It seems that when compassion is the foundation, even the most different species can find common ground," Cerné observed, her patterns forming the configuration that Mara had come to recognize as friendship. "My ancestors would be proud to see their knowledge preserved and expanded through this collaboration." Below them, Talon looked up and waved all 4 arms enthusiastically. Mara waved back, watching the child's joyful movements beneath the alien foliage, living proof that healing at its most fundamental level transcended the boundaries between worlds. In saving one child, they had opened the door to understanding that would benefit countless others. The memory crystal's gift remained with her, not just knowledge, but a deeper perception of the interconnectedness of all living things. It was a lesson Mara would carry forward in all her work, that true healing came not from technology alone, but from the compassion that drove them to reach across the vast distances between stars and find common purpose in preserving the miracle of life, whatever form it might take.